Welcome to the Heartbeat Chronicles, the podcast that delves into the intricate dynamic of love, sex, relationships, lifestyle, journaling, counseling, and therapy, and the messy in between. Get ready to explore the various aspects of life's heartbeat and discover insightful conversations that resonate with you. In today's episode, we're diving into something truly special, the #HeySoulfulRiley segment. This is where I get to connect with all of you, my incredible soulful ambassadors, on a personal level. I'll be answering your heartfelt questions, taking in your requests, and sharing meaningful conversations with you. Whether it's about love, life's ups and downs, or anything in between, this is our space to explore it all together, so let's get into it. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to Heartbeat Chronicles, where every beat tells a story. I'm your host, Riley Mitchell, and if this is your very first time tuning in, congratulations. You've officially become one of our soulful ambassadors. That special title isn't just for show. It means you're part of a community that believes in authentic connections and meaningful conversations. Can you believe we've reached the final episode of Season 3 already? Time really does fly when you're having deep conversations that feed the soul. Today's episode marks a special moment for us as we wrap up another incredible season of heartfelt stories and genuine connections. I wanted to let you know that after today, we'll be taking a little breather. Don't worry though, this isn't goodbye, just a short, see you later. We'll be back in May with Season 4, refreshed and ready with even more soul-stirring content. I can already feel the excitement building for what we'll create together next season. So, while we're taking this little break between seasons, I want you to know that our connection doesn't have to pause at all. Our social media will remain very much alive and active. If you're missing your regular dose of heartbeat wisdom or just want to reach out, you can find us on all platforms at heartbeat_chronicles. For more personal updates, or if you just want to say hi, you can also follow my personal handle at _soulful_Riley. I love hearing from you all. Your messages genuinely make my day, and I try to respond to as many as I can. I'd also like to take a moment to wish our soulful ambassadors who are celebrating a blessed Ramadan and a joyful Easter holiday. Whatever traditions you observe, I hope these coming weeks bring you peace, reflection, and connection with those you love. Remember, just because the podcast is on a short hiatus doesn't mean our community goes quiet. I'd actually love to use this time to hear more about what you want from Season 4. Drop your ideas, questions, or just your thoughts in our DMs. Your input shapes this podcast more than you know. What a journey Season 3 has been, Soulful Ambassadors. Can you believe we kicked off this season by celebrating our 1-year anniversary? That first episode where we reflected on our podcast journey still gives me goosebumps. From those early days when I was nervously adjusting my microphone settings to now, where we've created this beautiful community of heart-centered listeners, the growth has been nothing short of extraordinary. Looking back at our highlights, I'm filled with gratitude for how much we've expanded our horizons this season. We ventured into deeper conversations about vulnerability, explored the complexities of modern relationships, and even had some powerful discussions about mental health that I personally wasn't sure I was ready to lead. But you all showed up with such openness that it made those conversations feel like warm embraces. The feedback you've shared throughout the season has shaped so much of our content. Season 3 was also when we finally upgraded our production quality. No more recording in my closet surrounded by hanging clothes for sound dampening. This growth, both in content and quality, reflects the evolution of not just the podcast, but of all of us as we continue this journey of exploring every heartbeat and the story it tells. If I had to pick a standout moment from this season, it would definitely be our episode with Jess Caulfield and Gavin Stones. Wow, talk about raw honesty. When they came on to discuss the juggling act of relationships, parenthood, and finding time for yourself, I don't think any of us were prepared for just how real it would get. These weren't just parenting stories. They were vulnerable admissions about the messiness of trying to do it all. What struck me most was their discussion about maintaining their relationship amid the chaos of parenting. The message board practically exploded after that episode. I could tell this topic hit home because we received more voice messages and emails after that episode than any other this season. So many of you shared your own stories of parental guilt, relationship struggles, and the eternal quest for balance. One listener even said they played the episode for their partner, and it sparked their first real conversation about division of labor in months. What made this episode so special wasn't just the content. It was the permission it gave all of us to acknowledge that even the most loving parents and partners struggle sometimes, and that's okay. As Jess so beautifully put it, the most honest thing about parenting is that nobody has it figured out, and pretending you do is the biggest disservice to other parents. What truly amazes me is how our Soulful Ambassadors community has grown over this season. What started as a handful of dedicated listeners has blossomed into this incredible, vibrant family of souls connecting across distances. You've turned Heartbeat Chronicles from a simple podcast into a genuine movement where vulnerability is celebrated. Your engagement has completely transformed how I approach each episode. Remember when I asked for topic suggestions back in January? I was expecting maybe 10 responses. Instead, my inbox exploded with over 300 heartfelt messages. That's when I knew we were building something special together. Some of my favorite moments have come directly from your suggestions. I've grown so much through your willingness to both support and constructively challenge me. The weekly meditation prompts began because 5 different listeners requested more practical tools for emotional processing. Now it's become our most referenced segment, with many of you sharing how you've incorporated these practices into your daily routines. This podcast has never been a one-way street. Your stories, questions, and feedback have shaped every aspect of Heartbeat Chronicles. The content you connect with most deeply becomes our North Star for future episodes. You've helped me understand which conversations need more time and which perspectives we need to include. Now, for the rest of today's episode, I'm turning the spotlight directly onto you, our beautiful Soulful Ambassadors community. I've compiled some of the most thought-provoking questions, touching stories, and honest feedback you've sent in throughout Season 3, and we're going to dive into all of it. Let me tell you, sorting through these messages was an emotional roller coaster. One minute I was laughing so hard, my neighbor knocked to check if I was okay, and the next I was sitting in complete silence, moved to tears by your vulnerability. Some of what you've shared is deeply personal. Stories of transformation, healing, and those beautiful, messy moments that make us human. Others are hilariously relatable, like Ambassador Keisha's breakdown of her dating app disasters. Trust me, the story involving the fake accent and the escaped pet iguana is something you won't want to miss. You've asked questions that have pushed me to examine my own beliefs. Questions about purpose, about relationships, about finding balance in a world that constantly demands our attention. These aren't just casual inquiries. They're the essential questions we're all trying to answer in our journey. What I love most is how your stories intertwine with each other. You might not know it, but the challenges one ambassador faces often mirror what another is experiencing across the world. It's this beautiful reminder that beneath our different experiences beats the same fundamental human heart. So grab your favorite comfort beverage, get cozy, and let's celebrate this community by sharing your voices. After all, Heartbeat Chronicles has always been about us growing together, one heartbeat at a time. Sitting here at the end of Season 3, I can't help but reflect on how much this podcast has changed me. When I started Heartbeat Chronicles, I thought I was creating a space for others to share and grow, but I had no idea how profoundly it would transform my own life. This season especially has been a journey of personal evolution. I remember preparing for our 1-year anniversary episode with shaky hands and a racing heart, wondering if I had anything meaningful to offer beyond that milestone. Would the stories run dry? Would I run out of questions to ask? Those fears seem almost laughable now. What I've learned is that true connection isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to sit in the questions together. When Jess and Gavin opened up about their parenting struggles, I found myself reconsidering my own assumptions about what makes a family work. Their honesty created a space where perfection wasn't required, just presence. I've become a better listener, not just in the podcast booth, but in my everyday life. I catch myself really hearing what people are saying beneath their words now. That's something I never expected, how hosting would fundamentally shift how I interact with everyone around me. There have been challenging moments, too. Some episodes left me emotionally drained, carrying your stories with me for days afterward. I remember after one particularly heavy recording, sitting in my car for almost an hour, just processing everything that had been shared. Those moments taught me about boundaries, about holding space without absorbing every emotion as my own. Perhaps the greatest lesson has been about authenticity. Early in this season, I was still occasionally putting on what I now call my podcast voice. Slightly more polished, slightly less me. But you wonderful, soulful ambassadors somehow sensed it immediately. The messages would come in. Riley, we miss your voice. Just be you. And slowly, I learned to trust that my authentic self was exactly what this space needed. Storytelling isn't just something we do here. It's how we make sense of our lives, how we find our place in the human tapestry. Every time you've trusted me with your stories, you've helped me understand my own narrative better. For that gift, I am endlessly grateful. Now, I know you're all wondering what's coming when we return in May for season 4, and while I can't reveal all my cards just yet, I can certainly give you a little taste of what we're cooking up for our soulful ambassadors. We're also creating more space for your stories. I'm building a special recording setup that will allow me to collect voice messages from soulful ambassadors around the world, bringing your actual voices into the podcast. The team and I are redesigning the whole listening experience, playing with format and sound in ways that I think will surprise you. We're asking ourselves, how can each episode feel like both a warm blanket and a gentle push out of your comfort zone? That's all I can share for now. But trust me when I say that season 4 is going to take everything we've built together and elevate it to a whole new level. Okay, let's dive into your questions and dilemmas. Those episodes with Jess and Garvin on Navigating Parenthood really struck a chord with so many of you. The messages have been pouring in from literally all corners of the world, and it's incredible to see how universal these parenting struggles truly are. After our deep dives into balancing parenthood, partnership, and personal identity, you all had some powerful questions, vulnerable reflections, and moments of, oh my goodness, I thought I was the only one feeling this way. Well, you're definitely not alone. And that's exactly why we're dedicating today's episode to your voices. From Kenya to Canada, Australia to Mexico, parents everywhere are wrestling with the same fundamental questions. How do I stay true to myself while being everything my child needs? How do we keep our relationships alive when there's barely energy to stay awake? And how do we navigate all this without a manual? What I love most about our community is how we show up for each other. Your questions aren't just questions. They're lifelines to parents facing the exact same challenges, but maybe too afraid to ask. Today, we're going to get real, raw, and maybe even a little emotional as we work through these parenthood puzzles together. No perfect answers here, just honest conversation about the most important job many of us will ever have, while still remembering we're humans first, parents second. So grab your coffee, tea, or whatever keeps you going through those sleepless nights, and let's dive into the beautiful mess that is modern parenthood. Aisha from Nairobi asked about reclaiming her personal identity after becoming a new mom. And wow, this question resonates with so many parents. That feeling of losing yourself in the fog of diapers, feeding schedules, and sleep deprivation is incredibly common, but rarely discussed openly. When you become a parent, especially a mother, society often expects you to seamlessly transition into this all-giving, selfless being who finds complete fulfillment in caring for others. But the truth, you're still you. That person with passions, interests, and dreams didn't vanish the moment your baby arrived. Let's talk practical steps for reclaiming pieces of yourself. Start small, almost laughably small. We're not talking about weekend retreats or hours of uninterrupted hobby time right away. Think 15-minute increments where you do something that connects you to your pre-parent self. Maybe it's reading a non-parenting book, sketching, or simply enjoying a cup of coffee while it's still hot. The guilt is the real obstacle here. That voice whispering you should be doing something for your baby instead. Here's what helped me reframe this. Quality parenting isn't about quantity of time. It's about showing up as your authentic, fulfilled self. Your child doesn't need 100% of a depleted you. They need a reasonable percentage of a vibrant whole person. Try scheduling your me time rather than waiting for it to magically appear. Put it on your calendar like any other important appointment. And if possible, communicate clearly with your partner or support system about why this matters. This isn't selfishness, it's maintenance. Remember that your child is watching and learning from everything you do. By honoring your own needs and identity, you're teaching them a powerful lesson about self-worth and boundaries. You're modeling what a whole person looks like, not just what a parent looks like. Reclaiming yourself isn't a linear journey. Some days you'll feel more connected to your pre-parent identity, and others you'll be deep in the parenthood trenches. That's completely normal. The goal isn't perfect balance every day, but rather creating a life where motherhood is an addition to your identity, not a replacement for it. Now let's turn to Marcus from Atlanta, who raised an incredibly challenging situation that many parents face. Co-parenting with someone who simply won't cooperate can feel like pushing against a brick wall. The frustration and helplessness can be overwhelming. Marcus, first and foremost, I want to acknowledge how difficult this situation is. When you're trying to be present and active in your child's life while facing constant roadblocks, it takes tremendous emotional resilience. That commitment to staying involved despite the obstacles already speaks volumes about your character as a parent. In these situations, the hardest yet most powerful shift is focusing solely on what you can control. You can't control your ex's behavior, their willingness to communicate, or their cooperation. But you do have complete control over your consistency, your responses, and the environment you create during the time you do have with your child. Document everything. Keep detailed records of your communication attempts, planned visits, child support payments, and any incidents that occur. This isn't about building a case against your ex. Though it may help if legal intervention becomes necessary, it's about having clarity in a chaotic situation. When communicating with your ex, business email mode is your friend. Keep messages brief, focused on the children only, emotionally neutral, and solution-oriented. Avoid bringing up past conflicts or responding to provocations. Each message should be written as if a judge might read it someday, because sometimes that becomes reality. Find support systems that understand. Consider joining a support group for single or co-parenting fathers facing similar challenges. Having people who truly understand your situation can provide both emotional relief and practical strategies. Most importantly, protect your relationship with your child from the conflict. Children are incredibly perceptive. They notice tension, anger, and resentment, even when we think we're hiding it. Never speak negatively about your ex in front of your child, no matter how justified those feelings might be. Your child deserves to form their own relationship with both parents without carrying the weight of adult conflicts. Remember that your child sees and feels your efforts, even if circumstances aren't ideal. Quality connection matters more than quantity sometimes. Make the time you do have meaningful, present, and consistent. Years from now, what your child will remember isn't the logistics or conflicts, but that you never stopped showing up, never stopped trying, and never stopped loving them. Let's talk about Sophia's question from London about reconnecting with her partner after having a baby. This is something so many couples face, and if you're feeling this way, you're definitely not alone. When a baby enters your world, the relationship that created this little human often takes a back seat. You're both exhausted, your bodies and routines have changed, and suddenly this tiny person is demanding every ounce of energy you have. It's no wonder intimacy suffers. The first thing to understand is that intimacy isn't just sexual, it's emotional, intellectual, and physical in many non-sexual ways too. When you're too tired for sex, these other forms of connection become your relationship lifelines. Start by creating tiny moments of connection throughout your day. A 6-second kiss before leaving for work, holding hands while watching TV, or a genuine compliment about something non-parenting related can break the roommate pattern many new parents fall into. Communication becomes crucial here. Have an honest conversation about what you're both feeling, but try to have it when you're not already exhausted or frustrated. Many partners struggle silently, assuming rejection when really it's just exhaustion. Naming it helps. I miss you is powerful to hear when you're feeling disconnected. Get creative with the time you do have. The traditional date night might feel impossible right now, but what about a 20-minute coffee date on your patio after the baby goes down? Or trading 30-minute breaks on weekends where each of you gets alone time while the other handles baby duty? Physical touch that doesn't lead to sex can rebuild your connection pathway. A foot rub while watching TV, lying with your heads in each other's laps, or even just a long hug can release oxytocin and remind your bodies that you're still partners, not just co-parents. Remember that this phase is temporary. Your relationship will evolve, not disappear. The intimacy you rebuild now might look different than before. Maybe it's more intentional. Maybe it happens at different times of day, but it can actually become deeper because you're navigating this profound life change together. Be patient with yourselves and each other. Some days you'll have nothing left to give, and that's okay. The small, consistent efforts to turn toward each other rather than away will eventually rebuild the bridge between you. Let's talk about Jaden's question from Toronto. That feeling of failing at both parenting and partnership simultaneously, it's like being caught in a perfect storm of inadequacy. Here's the truth that's hard to swallow, but incredibly liberating. That feeling of failing isn't a reflection of your actual performance. It's a symptom of impossible standards. We're bombarded with images of parents who seem to have it all together while maintaining passionate relationships, but those snapshots don't show the full picture. Think about it. You're trying to nurture a developing human being while simultaneously maintaining a complex adult relationship. That's like trying to grow a garden while renovating the house it sits in. Something will always need more attention on any given day. The first step toward overcoming these feelings is recognizing that the bar you've set might be unrealistically high. Are you expecting yourself to be 100% present for your child, 100% attentive to your partner, and somehow have something left for yourself? That math doesn't work. We only have 100% total to give. Self-compassion is critical here. Speak to yourself as you would to a friend in your situation. Would you tell them they're failing? Or would you point out all the ways they're showing up despite the challenges? That inner voice matters tremendously. Another perspective shift that helps: redefine success. Maybe success isn't being the perfect parent and partner every day. Maybe it's being good enough at both most days and giving yourself grace on the days when one needs more than the other. Communication becomes your lifeline here. Let your partner know when you're feeling overwhelmed. Often just voicing, "I feel like I'm dropping all the balls today," can release some of that pressure. Your partner might be feeling exactly the same way, and naming it creates space for mutual support. Remember that children benefit from seeing authentic humanity in their parents. When they see you apologize after losing your patience, or watch you work through disagreements respectfully with your partner, you're teaching them resilience and emotional intelligence. The most freeing realization: the perfect parent partner doesn't exist. Every family is just figuring it out day by day. What matters isn't perfection. It's your willingness to keep showing up, to repair when things go sideways, and to begin again tomorrow with hope and intention. Progress over perfection isn't just a cute saying. It's the only sustainable approach to family life. Small improvements and moments of connection add up to something beautiful over time, even with all the messy parts included. Now, let's talk about Camille's question from Johannesburg about transitioning from work mode to parent mode. This is something so many of us struggle with, that mental switch from spreadsheets and meetings to building blocks and bedtime stories. When work stress follows you home, being present isn't just challenging, it can feel nearly impossible. Your body is in the living room, but your mind is still replaying that tough conversation with your boss or worrying about tomorrow's deadline. The key is creating what I call a transition ritual, a deliberate practice that helps your brain understand it's time to shift gears. Think of it as creating a mental bridge between your two worlds, rather than expecting yourself to teleport instantly between them. Your ritual doesn't need to be elaborate or time-consuming. It could be as simple as taking 5 deep breaths in your car before walking into your home. Some parents change their clothes immediately, symbolically shedding their work identity. Others take a quick walk around the block or listen to a specific song that signals work is done. What's important is consistency. Doing the same thing each day helps your brain recognize the pattern and respond accordingly. Another practical technique is to create a work worry parking lot. Before leaving your workspace, jot down any lingering concerns or unfinished tasks on a notepad. This physical act of writing them down signals to your brain that you're not forgetting them. You're just setting them aside until tomorrow. Digital boundaries are also crucial. Consider setting a specific time when work notifications go silent. If possible, leave your work phone in another room for the first hour you're home. If your job requires constant availability, designate specific check-in times rather than remaining perpetually on alert. When you first see your child after work, make those initial moments count. Get down to their eye level, make physical contact, and be fully present for even just 5 minutes. Those golden minutes of undivided attention can set the tone for your entire evening together. Remember that presence isn't about the quantity of time, it's about the quality of attention. 20 minutes of engaged play often means more to a child than 2 hours of distracted half attention. They can feel the difference even if they can't articulate it. If work thoughts keep intruding, acknowledge them briefly, and then gently bring yourself back to the present moment by focusing on a sensory detail: the sound of your child's voice, the feeling of their hand in yours, or the sight of their expression as they tell you about their day. The beautiful thing is that with practice, this transition gets easier. Your brain begins to recognize the cues and shifts more readily between modes. Give yourself grace as you develop this skill. It truly is a skill, not an innate ability that some parents have and others don't. Let's tackle Luis's question from Mexico City about clashing parenting styles. This is such a common challenge, especially when partners come from different backgrounds or were raised with different values. When two people with distinct parenting approaches come together, conflict is almost inevitable. You're not just disagreeing about bedtimes or screen time, you're often bumping up against deeply held beliefs about how children should be raised, beliefs that were formed long before you became parents yourselves. The first step is understanding that your parenting style isn't random. It's deeply influenced by how you were raised. Take time to reflect on and share with each other the why behind your approaches. Maybe you're strict about certain rules because your own parents were permissive and you felt insecure without boundaries. Or perhaps you're more relaxed because you felt stifled by too many restrictions growing up. These conversations shouldn't happen in the heat of disagreement, but rather during calm moments when you can both listen openly. The goal isn't to determine who's right, but to understand each other's core values and concerns. Once you understand the roots, look for the common ground, because it's always there. Maybe you disagree on method, but share the same ultimate goals: raising kind, confident, responsible children. This shared vision can be your North Star when navigating differences. Compromise becomes easier when you separate parenting principles from parenting practices. You might agree on the importance of respect, but disagree on how to teach it. That's where creative solutions emerge, perhaps combining elements of both approaches or taking turns leading in different situations. One practical approach is creating a short list of non-negotiable family rules that you both fully support, while allowing flexibility in other areas. This creates consistency where it matters most while honoring your individual parenting strengths. Remember that presenting a united front doesn't mean you need identical approaches. Children actually benefit from experiencing different parenting styles as long as they're both loving and respectful. It prepares them for a world full of diverse perspectives and teaches them flexibility. When disagreements do arise, try to address them privately rather than contradicting each other in front of your children. Children are incredibly perceptive. They'll quickly learn to play one parent against the other if they sense division. Finally, be willing to evolve together. Effective parenting isn't about rigidly sticking to a philosophy. It's about adapting to your unique child and circumstances. The approach that works for your first child might not work for your second, or what worked at age 3 might not work at age 8. Remember that your child doesn't need perfect parents who never disagree. They need authentic parents who model healthy conflict resolution and mutual respect, even when they see things differently. Now let's turn to Priya's question from Mumbai about single motherhood. Priya, your question really touched me because it reflects a concern I hear from so many single parents. This feeling that you somehow need to be everything to your child. First, I want to acknowledge the incredible strength it takes to parent on your own. The mental load, the physical demands, the emotional weight, you're carrying it all, and that deserves recognition. But here's the truth I want you to embrace. You don't have to be both mother and father. You only need to be one whole, authentic person who loves your child consistently. Children don't actually need two perfect half roles filled. They need genuine connection with whoever is in their life. Research has consistently shown that the quality of parenting matters far more than the family structure. What children truly need is stability, boundaries, love, and at least one adult who is absolutely crazy about them. You're already providing that. That said, creating a support network is incredibly valuable. Not because you're inadequate, but because parenting was never meant to be a solo endeavor. Even in two-parent households, it truly takes a village. Think about who in your life might provide different kinds of energy, wisdom, or perspective for your child. This might include family members, close friends, teachers, coaches, or community mentors. Sometimes these relationships develop organically, and sometimes you might need to intentionally cultivate them. The goal isn't to find substitute parents, but to surround your child with caring adults who bring their unique gifts. consider joining single-parent communities either locally or online. These spaces provide not just practical support, but also the invaluable sense that you're not alone in your challenges. Your child benefits when you have places to share, vent, and receive encouragement from others who truly understand. Remember, too, that children learn resilience by watching us navigate challenges. When you acknowledge that some days are hard, but you keep showing up anyway, you're teaching your child powerful lessons about persistence and self-reliance that will serve them throughout life. Let go of the pressure to create some perfect family experience. Instead, focus on creating your family culture, the unique rituals, inside jokes, and special traditions that belong just to you two. These become the meaningful threads in the tapestry of your child's life. Above all, trust yourself, Priya. The fact that you're even asking this question shows how deeply you care about your child's well-being, that love and intention matter more than any family structure ever could. Now let's talk about Ethan's question from Sydney about teaching emotional intelligence while still working on it ourselves. This is such a thoughtful question because it acknowledges something important. We're all works in progress when it comes to emotional intelligence. Ethan, I love your self-awareness here. The truth is, none of us have emotional intelligence completely figured out. We're all learning, growing, and sometimes still struggling with our own emotional responses. And that's actually good news for your parenting journey. Children don't need parents who have everything perfectly figured out. They need parents who are authentic and willing to grow. In fact, when you model that you're still learning how to handle emotions, you're teaching one of life's most valuable lessons, that emotional growth is a lifelong process. Think about the powerful learning opportunity when you say to your child, I'm feeling frustrated right now, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths before we continue this conversation. In that moment, you're not just managing your emotions, you're naming them, demonstrating a healthy coping strategy, and showing that emotions aren't something to fear or suppress. Some of the most impactful moments in parenting happen when we mess up and then repair. When you lose your cool and later circle back to say, I was feeling overwhelmed earlier and I didn't handle that well. I'm sorry I raised my voice. Let's try again. That's emotional intelligence in action. You're showing that mistakes aren't failures. They're opportunities to learn and grow. Research actually shows that this kind of rupture and repair process can be incredibly beneficial for children's emotional development. They learn that relationships can withstand emotional turbulence and that connection can be restored after difficult moments. Start simple. Help your children name their feelings by naming your own. I'm feeling disappointed that our plans changed, or I'm feeling excited about our weekend together. This vocabulary gives children the tools to understand their own emotional landscape. Remember that emotional intelligence isn't about never having difficult emotions. It's about recognizing, understanding, and responding to emotions in healthy ways. When your child sees you working through your own challenging feelings, they're learning that emotions aren't dangerous or overwhelming. They're just information that helps us understand ourselves and others better. The goal isn't perfection. It's progress and authenticity. By allowing your child to witness your own emotional learning journey, you're giving them permission to be human too, and that might be the greatest gift of all. Let's talk about Amelia's question from Paris about finding time for self-care when parenting leaves you barely able to breathe. This is such a common struggle and one that deserves our attention because self-care isn't just a luxury. It's what keeps us functioning. Amelia, when I first heard your question, I immediately thought about how we've complicated the whole concept of self-care. Social media would have us believe it's all about elaborate spa days or weekend retreats, but for busy parents, that definition simply isn't practical. The truth is, effective self-care for parents often looks much different than those Instagram-worthy moments. It's about finding tiny pockets of restoration in the rhythm of your everyday life. It's less about adding one more thing to your schedule and more about transforming the moments you already have. Think micro, not macro. Can you drink your morning coffee while it's still hot, standing by the window for 3 minutes of quiet before the day begins? That's self-care. Can you take the scenic route home just to listen to your favorite song uninterrupted? That's self-care too. Even brushing your teeth mindfully, feeling the bristles and focusing on just that moment rather than mentally cycling through tomorrow's to-do list. That's a form of reclaiming yourself. One of the most powerful shifts happens when we stop waiting for perfect conditions to take care of ourselves. The perfect moment, that mythical hour of uninterrupted peace, might not come for weeks in busy parent life, but 5 minutes? That shows up several times a day if we're looking for it. Try what I call habit stacking, adding small moments of joy or calm to things you already do. Love essential oils? Keep one by the kitchen sink and take 3 deep breaths with it while washing dishes. Miss reading? Audiobooks during your commute or while folding laundry can feed your mind while your hands stay busy. Remember that self-care isn't selfish. It's sustainable parenting. Running on empty doesn't serve anyone, least of all your children. They need you present and regulated, not depleted and resentful. Parents often say they don't have time for self-care, but I gently challenge that thinking. We find time for what we truly value. If you reframe self-care not as an indulgence but as necessary maintenance, just like charging your phone, you'll start to protect those small moments with greater intention. Start today. What's one 5-minute window you can reclaim for yourself? One sensory pleasure you can add to an existing routine? One boundary you can set to protect your energy? These small shifts compound over time, gradually restoring your sense of self amid the beautiful chaos of parenthood. Now let's tackle Tariq's question from Dubai about finding that elusive balance between discipline and being a loving parent. This is something so many of us struggle with, that constant inner dialogue questioning if we're being too strict or too lenient. Tariq, I want to start by reassuring you that this tension you're feeling is actually a good sign. It shows you're thoughtful about your parenting approach and that you care deeply about both guiding your child and maintaining a loving connection. That awareness is already half the battle. The most effective discipline isn't about control or punishment. It's about teaching. The word discipline actually comes from the Latin word for to teach. So when we shift our mindset from controlling behavior to teaching life skills, everything changes. Children thrive with clear boundaries. They actually feel safer when they understand the rules and expectations. The trick is delivering those boundaries with warmth and respect rather than harshness or anger. Think firm but kind, like a strong tree that doesn't break in the wind but still bends and sways. One practical approach I've found helpful is to explain the why behind rules. Instead of just saying, because I said so, try, we don't run by the pool because the ground is slippery and you could hit your head. This helps children understand the reasoning rather than just following orders blindly. When children break rules, and they will, because testing boundaries is literally their job, respond rather than react. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what does my child need to learn from this situation? Sometimes they need empathy first, then guidance. I understand you're frustrated, and we still don't hit when we're angry. Let's figure out what else you can do with those big feelings. Another powerful tool is natural consequences whenever possible. If they don't put their toys away, those toys might be temporarily put aside. If they don't wear a coat, they might feel cold. These real-world lessons often teach more effectively than our lectures ever could. What's truly interesting about this balance is that discipline and love aren't actually opposing forces. They're complementary. Setting clear, consistent boundaries is an act of love. It shows your child you care enough to guide them, even when it would be easier to just give in. Remember that discipline should always serve connection, not damage it. If your approach is consistently driving a wedge between you and your child, it might be time to reevaluate. The goal is for your child to learn and grow while still feeling fundamentally seen, loved, and respected. Parenting isn't about getting it right every time, it's about learning together. Some days you'll lean too far one way or the other, and that's okay. The fact that you're wondering about this balance shows you're already on the right path. Let's talk about Elena from Madrid's reflection. It really struck me because it touches on something so many parents experience but rarely verbalize. This complete sublimation of self that happens when we become caregivers. Elena, when you shared that you've been giving so much to your family that you've completely neglected yourself, I felt that in my soul. That feeling of looking in the mirror one day and barely recognizing the person staring back at you isn't just common. It's almost a universal stage of parenthood that nobody properly warns us about. The guilt you mentioned is particularly powerful. We've somehow internalized this false narrative that taking anything for ourselves is selfish, as if being a good parent means complete self-erasure. But here's the truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. This isn't just a cute saying. It's a fundamental reality of human energy and emotional capacity. Starting the journey back to yourself begins with permission. You need to explicitly give yourself permission to exist as more than just someone's parent or partner. This might feel uncomfortable at first, almost wrong, That's the guilt talking, and we need to gently push past it. Begin with small reclamations. Maybe it's 10 minutes with a book that has nothing to do with parenting. Perhaps it's taking the long way home just to listen to your favorite song uninterrupted. It could be signing up for that class you've been eyeing, even if it's just once a month. What often happens is that we wait for some magical future moment when we'll have time for ourselves again. But that perfect moment never materializes because life keeps happening. Instead, we have to deliberately carve out these spaces within our current reality. Remember that your children are watching. When you honor your needs, interests, and identity beyond parenthood, you're teaching them a profound lesson about self-worth and boundaries. You're showing them what healthy adulthood actually looks like, which is far more valuable than another hour of self-sacrifice. The road back to yourself isn't linear. There will be days when family needs truly do take precedence. The difference is making these conscious choices, rather than defaulting to self-neglect as your standard operating procedure. Your identity hasn't disappeared, it's just been temporarily overshadowed. Those parts of you are still there, waiting patiently to be remembered and reclaimed, one small act of self-honoring at a time. I love what Malik from Brooklyn shared about Garvin's words really landing with him. Presence over perfection. This hits at something so fundamental in parenting today that I think we all need to hear. In a world of Instagram perfect family photos and parenting books promising foolproof methods, we've created this impossible standard of what it means to be a good parent. We think it's about having the perfect educational toys, creating elaborate sensory activities, cooking nutritionally balanced meals that look like zoo animals, and never losing our cool. But children don't actually need perfect parents. What they need, what they're absolutely starving for, is our genuine presence. Being truly seen, heard, and felt by the adults who matter most to them. When Malik realized he was so caught up in doing everything right that he was missing the simple joy of just being with his kids. That's a breakthrough moment. Because perfection creates distance. It puts us in our heads, checking mental boxes, instead of in our hearts, connecting with these little humans who just want our attention. Think about your own childhood memories. What stands out? It's rarely the perfectly planned birthday party or the educational outing. It's the random Tuesday when your dad let you help fix the car, even though you mostly just handed him tools. It's your mom laughing until she cried while playing a board game. It's the imperfect, unscripted moments of genuine connection. Children are remarkably forgiving of our mistakes. They don't need us to be flawless. They need us to be real, to apologize when we mess up, to put down our phones and really look at that rock collection, to listen to the same joke for the 15th time and still laugh. Presence isn't about quantity of time either. It's about quality of attention. 10 fully present minutes will nourish a child's soul more than an hour of distracted half listening while scrolling through your phone. So Malik, thank you for this powerful reminder. Letting go of the pressure to parent perfectly doesn't make us worse parents. It makes us more human, more connected, and ultimately, the exact parents our children actually need. Zainab's reflection from Lagos really touched on something many couples experience, but few openly discuss: how profoundly a relationship transforms after children enter the picture. When she mentioned nodding along to Jess's discussion about intimacy after kids, I felt that deep in my soul. There's this unspoken expectation that while, yes, a baby changes your schedule and your sleep, the essence of your relationship will somehow magically remain intact. But that's rarely the case, is it? The relationship that existed between two people suddenly needs to accommodate a third or more, and everything shifts. What's fascinating about intimacy after children is that we often reduce it to just physical connection, but it's so much more layered than that. Intimacy is emotional availability. It's intellectual engagement. It's sharing laughter over an inside joke nobody else would understand. And yes, it includes physical closeness too. When you're running on 4 hours of broken sleep, with spit up on your shirt and a mental to-do list a mile long, passion isn't automatically going to ignite. That's normal. The problem comes when we don't acknowledge this new reality and adapt to it. What I love about addressing Zainab's comment is the opportunity to normalize these changes and offer practical ways forward. Connection in this season might look like sending a loving text during the day. It might be a 5-minute check-in about feelings that have nothing to do with the baby. It could be holding hands while watching TV after the little one is asleep, or leaving a note in a lunch bag. Exhaustion is real, and pretending it isn't there doesn't help anyone. But intimacy can thrive in small moments intentionally created. It's about quality over quantity, depth over duration. Remember that this challenging season doesn't last forever. Children grow, sleep eventually happens, and space for your relationship will expand again. But the connections you maintain during the intense early years, even if they look different than before, create the foundation for the relationship you'll continue to build as your family evolves. Noah's question from Melbourne really strikes at the heart of a challenge many single parents face. When we talk about it takes a village to raise a child, what happens when you don't seem to have a village? First, I want to acknowledge the incredible strength it takes to parent solo. Noah, the fact that you're even thinking about support systems shows your commitment to giving your child the best possible upbringing. That awareness alone puts you steps ahead. The truth is, support doesn't have to look traditional. We often picture support as grandparents living nearby or siblings dropping in to help. But meaningful support networks can be built in countless ways. Sometimes the most powerful connections come from unexpected places. Consider looking into single parent groups in your area or online communities where you can share experiences with others who truly understand your situation. These connections can provide both emotional support and practical advice that comes from lived experience. Don't overlook the potential allies in your everyday life, a neighbor who might be willing to arrange occasional playdates, another parent from school or sports activities, or even a coworker who could become a friend outside of work. Support often begins with vulnerability, being willing to reach out and honestly express what you need. For many single parents, creating a reliable childcare network becomes essential. This might involve trading childcare hours with another parent, finding a trusted babysitter, or connecting with after-school programs. These arrangements not only give you necessary breaks, but also provide your child with valuable social interactions. Remember that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. Even small assists like someone picking up your child from practice occasionally, or having a friend you can call during tough moments can make a world of difference. The isolation of single parenting can be just as challenging as the practical demands. Finding spaces where you can be yourself, not just dad, helps maintain your sense of identity beyond parenthood. This might be an evening class, a hobby group, or simply regular video calls with friends. Soulful Ambassadors, these reflections were so powerful. Parenthood, relationships, and self-identity. None of it is easy, but you are not alone in this journey. Keep sharing, keep reflecting, and most importantly, keep giving yourself the same love you give to others. Which part of these episodes hit home for you? Drop your thoughts below or DM me. #HeySoulfulRiley, #ParentingRealTalk. I can't believe that we have come to the end of our episode in season 3 already. Time really does fly when you're connecting with amazing people, doesn't it? I have to say one of the absolute highlights for me throughout this season has been our #HeySoulfulRiley segment. There's something so special about getting to interact with you all on such a personal level. And my goodness, your stories. You've had me laughing one minute, wiping away tears the next, and sitting on the edge of my seat wondering what happens next. The emotional journeys you've shared, the funny mishaps that had me nearly falling out of my chair, and those dramatic plot twists from your real lives, they're all incredible reminders of how complex and beautiful the human experience really is. What makes this segment so powerful is that it's a judgment-free zone. We're all just humans trying to figure things out, right? Whether you're struggling with relationships, career decisions, family dynamics, or just trying to understand yourself better, we're all in this together, learning and growing. I wish we could keep going with all the stories that have flooded in, but we'd be here until next season. Don't worry though, we'll pick up right where we left off in our next #HeySoulfulRiley segment. Your vulnerability and willingness to share parts of yourselves with this community doesn't go unnoticed. It's what makes this podcast feel less like a show and more like a conversation among friends. I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to all you soulful ambassadors out there. Your questions, your vulnerability, and your continued engagement throughout this season have truly been the heartbeat of this podcast. When you share your stories, your doubts, your triumphs. You're not just sending messages into the void, you're creating ripples of connection that reach so many others who might be experiencing similar situations. The courage it takes to put your personal struggles and questions out there for others to hear doesn't go unnoticed. Every time I read one of your messages, I'm reminded of the tremendous trust you place in this community, and I don't take that lightly. These conversations have enriched our podcast in ways I couldn't have imagined when we started. What began as a simple Quanda segment has blossomed into profound discussions about life, love, growth, and everything in between. You've brought depth, authenticity, and so much heart to each episode. Beyond just enhancing content, you've helped foster genuine connections. I've received countless messages from listeners who felt less alone after hearing someone else articulate the very thoughts that had been swirling in their own minds. That's the magic of community, the understanding that our individual experiences, when shared, become collective wisdom. So thank you for being brave, for being real, and for being part of this journey. This podcast exists because of you, grows because of you, and continues to evolve with every story you share. Now, I'd love to challenge all of you amazing listeners to keep our #HeySoulfulRiley conversations going, even during our break. If you have a question that's been weighing on your mind, something you're struggling with, or even a triumph you want to share, don't hesitate to send it in. Your stories might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Drop your questions through our social media channels or email them directly to us. Make sure to use the hashtag #HeySoulfulRiley so we can find them easily. I'll be collecting these gems during our hiatus, and they'll help shape our discussions when we return for Season 4. Speaking of which, I wanted to let you all know that we'll be taking a short break until May 6th. I know. I'll miss our weekly chats too. But this pause will give me time to recharge, gather fresh insights, and prepare some incredible content for our next season. During this break, I'll still be active on our social platforms, so it's the perfect time to connect with me there. Share your thoughts on past episodes, suggest topics you'd like to hear about in Season 4, or simply drop by to say hello. This community doesn't stop just because the podcast is on pause. Use this time to catch up on any episodes you might have missed or revisit some favorites. And remember, the conversations we've had aren't meant to stay just within this podcast. They're meant to be carried into your daily lives, shared with friends, and used as starting points for your own meaningful discussions. So, mark your calendars for May 6th when we'll return with brand new episodes, fresh perspectives, and of course, more of your heartfelt questions. I promise, the wait will be worth it. Our merch store is still going strong during our break. If you've been loving the soulful vibes we've been sharing, why not take some of that energy with you throughout your day? We've got something for everyone. From cozy mugs for your morning coffee to stylish tote bags for your daily adventures. Picture yourself sipping from a Heartbeat Chronicles travel mug during your morning commute, or wearing one of our thoughtfully designed t-shirts or hoodies that spark conversations wherever you go. We also have the cutest pins, magnets, and stickers to add a touch of soulful inspiration to your space. For your home, check out our tapestries, pillows, and wall art that bring warmth to any room. We even have phone cases to keep your daily companion dressed in positive vibes. The link to our merch store is available in the description box and on our Instagram handle at heartbeat_chronicles. Every purchase supports this podcast and helps us continue creating content that resonates with your soul. I'm also incredibly excited to share something personal with you all. Many of you have asked about my perspectives on modern relationships, and I've put my thoughts into a book, Love in the Digital Age: Navigating Modern Romance. This labor of love explores how technology has transformed the way we connect, date, and build relationships in today's world. The book dives into the challenges and opportunities of finding love online, maintaining authenticity in a filtered world, and building meaningful connections despite digital distractions. If our conversations about relationships on this podcast have resonated with you, you'll find even deeper insights in these pages. You can find Love in the Digital Age on Amazon in your preferred format. Ebook for the digital lovers, paperback for the traditionalists, or hardcover for those who want something substantial on their bookshelf. The link for purchase is in the description box and on my personal Instagram handle at _soulful_Riley, as well as at heartbeat_chronicles. I'd be honored if you checked it out and shared your thoughts with me. Now let's talk about where you can find the Heartbeat Chronicles podcast. because I want to make sure we stay connected during our break and beyond. We are absolutely everywhere in the digital space, making it super easy for you to tune in however you prefer. On social media, you can find us as Heartbeat Chronicles Podcast across Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, and Threads. These platforms are where we share bonus content, behind-the-scenes moments, and engage directly with our soulful community. It's also where I'll be dropping hints about what's coming in Season 4. For listening to full episodes, we've made sure you can access us wherever you get your podcast fix. You can watch visual episodes on YouTube and Rumble, or listen on Pods Network, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and Amazon Music. We're also available on Podcast Index, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Pocket Casts, Deezer, Listen Notes, Player FM, Overcast, Castro, Castbox, Podfriend, Good Pods, and True Fans. Our regular schedule has our episodes dropping every Tuesday at 12 p.m. East African Time. While we're taking a short break until May 6th, this is actually the perfect time to catch up on any episodes you might have missed from Season 3, or even dive back into Seasons 1 and 2. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when we return with Season 4. The best part? Subscribing is completely free across all platforms, and it helps us grow our soulful community even more. I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to all our soulful ambassadors who have been with us throughout this journey. To everyone who has liked our content, left thoughtful comments, and engaged with us in meaningful ways, you are the heartbeat of this podcast. Your support doesn't go unnoticed, and it fuels my passion to continue creating content that resonates with you. For those who are listening or watching right now, thank you for choosing to spend your time with me. If today's episode spoke to you, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and turn on notifications so we can stay connected. Every interaction helps our community grow and allows us to reach more people who might benefit from these conversations. I truly believe in the power of community input, which is why our direct messages are always open. If there's a specific topic you're dying for me to cover in Season 4, or if you have suggestions about what you'd like to see more or less of, please don't hesitate to reach out. Your feedback shapes this podcast and helps it evolve. If today's episode touched something in you, consider sharing it with someone in your life who might need to hear it. Sometimes the simplest act of sharing can be exactly what someone else needs in their moment of questioning or growth. And please, if you have a question that's been on your mind, something you've been wrestling with or curious about, send it my way for our next #HeySoulfulRiley segment. Your questions often reflect what many others are thinking but haven't found the words to ask. Our questions remind us that growth is a collective journey. Thank you for being part of this community and for inspiring these heartfelt conversations. When we share our stories, our doubts, and our triumphs, we create something far more powerful than any one of us could build alone. Each question you send becomes a bridge that connects someone else to the understanding they've been searching for. As we close this chapter of Season 3, I want you to know that this space we've created together remains open even during our break. The conversations we've had continue to resonate, to challenge us, and to comfort us when we need it most. Until next time, stay soulful, stay curious, and as always, stay connected. This isn't goodbye, it's just a little break before we come back stronger, deeper, and even more real in Season 4. And trust me, it's going to be worth the wait. I'll be using this time to gather new stories, fresh perspectives, and powerful insights that will make our reunion on May 6th feel like coming home after a long journey. Remember that true growth happens in the quiet moments between our conversations too. So keep asking questions, keep seeking truth, and keep nurturing that beautiful, soulful spirit of yours. I'll be doing the same, and I can't wait to reconnect and continue this journey together. Bye for now. Wow, what an incredible time we've had today, connecting on a deeper level through your stories, questions, and personal experiences. I always feel so grateful for the opportunity to engage with you all in the #HeySoulfulRiley segment. Your vulnerability and openness make this community so special, and it's truly heartwarming to see how we support and uplift one another. Remember, our DMs are always open, so keep the conversations flowing, keep reaching out, and keep sharing your heart. You never know how your words might help someone else. Also, share this episode or link to this podcast to friends, family, and even colleagues. You never know who might need this soulful loving. As always, stay soulful, stay connected, and don't forget to tune in May for more heartfelt discussions. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. See you soon, Soulful Ambassadors. Don't forget to hit that notification button.